Chapters 26 through 31 of the Book of Numbers, from the Holy Bible in Modern English. This LibriVox recording is in the public domain. Recording by Mark Penfold. The Holy Bible in Modern English, translated by Ferrar Fenton. The Book of Numbers, chapters 26 through 31. Chapter 26. The ever-living afterwards also commanded to Moses and to Eleazar the son of Aaron the priest, saying, Take a census of all the families of the children of Israel, from the age of 20 years and upwards, by the houses of their ancestors, all in Israel capable of army service. Consequently Moses commanded Eleazar the priest, while they were at the fords of Moab, by the torrent near Jericho, saying, From the age of 20 years and upwards, as the ever-living commanded to Moses, when the children of Israel were brought up from the land of Mitzar. Reuben was firstborn son of Israel. Of Reuben, Canach. From him were the families of the Canachites. From Philua, the families of the Philuaites. From Hezron, the families of the Hezronites. From Carmi, the families of the Carmites. These were the families of the Reubenites, and there were enrolled 43,730. And the son of Philua was Eliab. And the sons of Eliab, Nemuel, and Dathan, and Abiram. From him came Dathan and Abiram, who excited the parliament that revolted against Moses and Aaron in the revolt of Korah, when they rebelled against the ever-living. But the earth opened her mouth and swallowed them and Korah into death, with all those persons, to the number of 150 men who had joined them. But the son of Korah did not die. The sons of Simeon by their families were, from Namuel, the families of the Namuelites. From Jamin, the families of the Jaminites. From Jachin, the families of the Jachinites. From Zarach, the families of the Zarachites. From Shaul, the families of the Shaulites. These were the families of the Simeonites, 22,200. The sons of Gad by their families were, from Ziphon, the families of the Ziphonites. From Kaggai, the families of the Kaggites. From Shunai, the families of the Shunites. From Asni, the families of the Asnites. From Ari, the families of the Arites. From Arad, the families of the Aradites. From Arali, the families of the Aralites. These were the families of the sons of Gad. There were enrolled of them 40,500. The sons of Judah, Ar and Onan. But Ar and Onan died in the land of Canaan. These, however, were the sons of Judah by their families. From Shelah, the families of the Shelahites. From Pheretz, the families of the Pheretzites. From Zerach, the families of the Zerachites. And there were of the sons of Pheretz, from Katzron, the families of the Katzronites. From Kamal, the families of the Kamalites. These were the families of Judah who were enrolled, 76,500. The sons of Issachar by their families were, from Thola, the families of the Tholites. From Phua, the families of the Phuites. From Yashub, the families of the Yashubites. From Shimron, the families of the Shimronites. These were the families of Issachar, with an enrollment of 64,300. The sons of Zebulun by their families were, from Sored, the families of the Soredites. From Alon, the families of the Alonites. From Yachlal, the families of the Yachlalites. These were the families of the Zebulunites, with an enrollment of 60,500. The sons of Joseph by the families of Manasseh and Ephraim were, the sons of Manasseh. From Machir, the families of the Machirites. But Machir begat Gilad. From Gilad were the families of the Giladites. These were the sons of Gilad. From Aizar, the families of the Aizarites. From Chelag, the families of the Chelagites. From Asriel, the families of the Asrielites. From Shechem, the families of the Shechemites. From Shemida, the families of the Shemidaites. From Kepher, the families of the Kepherites. From Tzilophkad, the son of Kephir, there were no sons, but only daughters. And the names of the daughters of Zelophehad were Machlah, and Noah, Kaglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. These were the families of Manasseh enrolled, 52,700. These were the sons of Ephraim by their families. From Chuthlach were the families of the Chuthlachites. From Becher, the families of the Becherites. From Thachan, the families of the Thachanites. And these were the sons of Chuthlach. From Aran, the families of the Aranites. These were the families of the sons of Ephraim, by enrollment, 32,500. These were the sons of Joseph by their families. The sons of Benjamin by their families were, from Bolah, the families of the Bolites. From Ashbel, the families of the Ashbelites. From Achirm, the families of the Achirmites. From Shephapham, the families of the Shephaphamites. From Kopham, the families of the Kophamites. And there were sons of Bolah, Arad, and Naaman. From Arad, the families of the Aradites. From Naaman, the families of the Naamanites. These were the sons of Benjamin, by their families, by enrollment, 45,600. These were the sons of Dan, by their families. From Shucam, the families of the Shuchamites. These were the families of Dan, by their families. All the families of the Shuchamites, by enrollment, were 64,400. The sons of Asher by their families were, from Imnah, the families of the Imnites. From Ishua, the families of the Ishuites. From Beriah, the families of the Beriahites. From the sons of Beriah, from Keber, the families of the Keberites. From Malchiel, the families of the Malchielites. And the name of the daughter of Asher was Sarach. These were the families of the sons of Asher, by enrollment, 50,400. The sons of Naphtali, by their families, were, from Yaxal, the families of the Yaxalites. From Gunai, the families of the Gunites. From Itzrai, the families of the Itzrites. From Shelam, the families of the Shelamites. These were the families of Naphtali, by their families, by enrollment, 45,400. These were enrolled of the sons of Israel, 601,730. The ever-living afterwards spoke to Moses, and said, You shall divide the country into estates for them according to the number of the names. To the more numerous you shall increase the portions, and to the lesser lessen the portions. Each according to the enrollment shall be given their possessions. You shall distribute the portions of land by lots. They shall inherit by the names of the tribes of their fathers. These also were the chiefs of Levi by their families. From Gershon the families of the Gershonites. From Kehath the families of the Kehathites. From Merari the families of the Merarites. These are the families of the Levites. The family of Libni, the family of Kabani, the family of Machlai, the family of Mushai, the family of Karakai, and Kehath begat Amram, and the name of Amram's wife was Jochebed, a descendant of Levi, who was born to Levi in Mizar, and she bore to Amram Aaron, and Moses, and Miriam their sister. And there were born to Aaron Nadab and Abihu, and Eleazar and Ithamar. But Nadab and Abihu died in presenting strange fire in the presence of the ever-living. Their enrollment was 23,000, all males from a month old and upwards. But they were not numbered among the children of Israel, for no portion was given to them among the children of Israel. This was the census taken by Moses and Eleazar the priest, when they enumerated the sons of Israel at the fords of Moab near the torrent by Jericho. But among these there was not one who had been enrolled by Moses and Aaron the priest when they enumerated the children of Israel in the desert of Sinai, for the ever-living had said, They should die in the desert, and there should not remain a man of them except Caleb the son of Jephunneh, and Joshua the son of Nun. Chapter 27. On one occasion the daughters of Zelophehad, the son of Kapher, the son of Machir, the son of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, and the names of these girls were Machlah, Noah, and Kaglah, and Micah, and Tirzah, approached and placed themselves before Moses, and Eleazar the priest, and the princes, and all the parliament at the opening of the hall of assembly, saying, Our father died in the desert, for he was among the confederacy who revolted against the ever-living with the associates of Korah, and he died for his sin, and he had no sons. Why should the name of our father be taken from among his family because he had not a son? Give us an inheritance among the brothers of our father." Moses therefore presented it for decision before the ever-living, and Jehovah commanded Moses, saying, "What the daughters of Zelophehad have asked of you, grant. Give them a share to inherit amongst the brothers of their father, and assign the inheritance of their father to them. You shall also command the children of Israel that, when a man dies and has not a son, you shall assign his estate to his daughters. But if he has no daughter, you shall assign his estate to his brother. But if he has no brother, then you shall give his estate to his father, or to his next of kin of his own family, and he shall possess it. And this shall be an institution of justice, which the ever-living commands to Moses." Then the ever-living said to Moses, "Ascend this hill by the fords, and survey the country which I have given to the children of Israel. When you have seen it, you shall be added to your fathers, yourself, as Aaron your brother was added, because you rebelled openly in the wilderness of Sin, when the parliament rebelled, in not sanctifying me at the waters in their sight, at the waters of strife in the wilderness of Sin." And Moses replied to the ever-living and said, "Appoint a man, living God of the breath of all flesh, over the assembly, who may go out before them and come in before them, and who can lead them out and bring them back, so that the assembly of the ever-living may not be like sheep without a shepherd." The ever-living replied to Moses, "Take to yourself Joshua the son of Nun, a man who has spirit in him, and strike your hand upon him, and place him before Eleazar the priest, and before all the parliament, and appoint him in their sight. And put your majesty upon him, so that all the representatives of the children of Israel may listen to him. Thus let him stand in the presence of Eleazar the priest, who shall inquire for him by the decision of the Urim, in the presence of Jehovah. At his command they shall come in, and at his command they shall go out, and all the children of Israel with him, and all their parliament." Moses therefore did as the ever-living ordered him, and took Joshua and stationed him before Eleazar the priest, and before the parliament, and struck his hand upon him, and he was appointed as the Lord commanded to Moses. Chapter 28. Then the ever-living spoke to Moses, and said, "Command the children of Israel, and say to them, You shall take care to present to me the shewbread as an acceptable offering at the proper times. Also give them this order about the offering which they are to make to the ever-living of the 2 perfect lambs of a year old daily, as a perpetual burnt offering. They shall offer 1 lamb at daybreak, and offer the second in the afternoon, with the 1/10 of an ephah of fine flour mixed with 1/4 of a hin of beaten oil. Sacrifices such as were made constantly at Mount Sinai, for a delightful offering to the ever-living. With a drink offering of 1/4 of a hin for each lamb to pour as a drink offering to Jehovah. And sacrifice the second lamb in the afternoon as a grateful, pleasant perfume to the ever-living. But upon the Sabbath day, 2 perfect lambs of a year old, with 2/10 of fine flour mixed with the oil and the drink offering. That shall be the burnt offering for the Sabbath, as well as the perpetual burnt offerings with their drink offerings. And on the 1st of the month you shall present as a burnt offering to the ever-living 2 bullocks from the fold, and 1 ram, with 7 perfect he-lambs of a year old, and 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil, as a food offering for a bullock. And 2/10 of fine flour mixed with oil as a food offering with a single ram, and 1/10 of an asheron of fine flour mixed with oil to 1 lamb, as a sacrifice of pleasant scent to the ever-living. And their drink offerings shall be 1/2 a hin for a bullock, and 1/3 of a hin of wine for the ram, and 1/4 of a hin of wine for a lamb. This shall be the burnt offering month by month for every month of the year, with 1 ram of the goats for a sin offering to the ever-living. It shall be offered along with the perpetual burnt offering and the drink offering. In the 1st month also, on the 14th day of the month, is the Passover of the ever-living. And on the 15th day of this month shall be a festival of 7 days, when biscuits shall be eaten. On the 1st day proclaim a holy rest. You shall do no laboring work, but present as a sweet burnt offering to the ever-living 2 bullocks from the herd, and a ram, and 7 lambs of a year old. Perfect ones shall be chosen, with a food offering of 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil for each bullock, and 2/10 offered with the ram. A single tenth shall be offered with each lamb of the 7 lambs. 1 he-goat also for a sin offering to expiate for you. You shall offer these beside the sacrifice at daybreak, which is offered continually. Do the same daily for 7 days, offering bread as a sweet, delightful perfume to the ever-living. It must be offered besides the perpetual burnt offering and drink offering. Proclaim also that the 7th day shall be holy to you. You shall do no laboring work in it. And upon the day of first fruits you shall present a bread offering from the land to the ever-living, when a holiday shall be proclaimed as a rest for you. You shall not do any laboring work in it, but present as a burnt offering delightful to the ever-living 2 bullocks from the herd, and a ram, with 7 lambs of a year old, and as a bread offering 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil for each bullock, and 2/10 with a ram, with 1/10 of an asheron for each lamb, of the 7 lambs, and a he-goat to expiate for you. Beside perpetual sacrifices and the bread offerings you offer daily, there shall be these with their drink offerings. Chapter 29. And in the 7th month you shall proclaim the first of the month holy to the ever-living. You shall do no servile work. Make it your day of rejoicing to the Lord, and offer as a burnt offering delightful to the ever-living a bullock from the fold, a ram, and 7 perfect lambs of a year old. And as a bread offering 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil for the bullock, 2/10 with the ram, and 1/10 with each one of the 7 lambs, and a ram of the goats as a sin offering to expiate for you, beside the burnt offerings of the month, and the food offerings, and the perpetual sacrifices, and their bread offerings, and drink offerings as decreed, for a pleasant scent to the ever-living. And you shall proclaim the 10th of the 7th month holy to the ever-living, when you shall lower your lives, and do no work, but offer in burnt offerings to the ever-living as a sweet perfume a bullock from the herd, a ram, 7 perfect lambs of a year old, and as a bread offering 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil for the bullock, 2/10 for the ram, the 10th of an asheron for each one of the 7 lambs, with a ram of the goats as a sin offering, beside the sin offerings of expiation, and the perpetual sacrifices, and the food offerings and drink offerings. And you shall also proclaim the 15th day of the 7th month holy to you. You shall not do any laboring work in it, but feast a festival to the ever-living for 7 days. Then you shall present as a burnt offering of delightful scent to Jehovah 13 bullocks, 2 rams, 14 he-lambs for a year old. They shall be perfect, with their food offerings of 3/10 of fine flour mixed with oil to each bullock of the 13 bullocks, 2/10 to each ram of the 2 rams, and 1/10 of an asheron to each of the lambs of the 14 lambs, with a he-goat as a sin offering, beside the perpetual food offerings and drink offerings. And upon the 2nd day 12 perfect bullocks from the herd, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread offerings and drink offerings for the bullocks, for the rams, and for the lambs by the rule, as decreed, with a ram of the goats as a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 3rd day 12 perfect bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings with the bullocks, rams, and lambs, according to the rule decreed. And a goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices and their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 4th day 10 perfect bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings according to the rule decreed, and a he-goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 5th day 9 perfect bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings for the bullocks, for the rams, and for the lambs, according to the rule decreed, and a he-goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 6th day 8 perfect bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings for the bullocks, for the rams, and for the lambs, according to the rule decreed, with a he-goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 7th day, 7 perfect bullocks, 2 rams, 14 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings for the bullocks, the rams, and lambs, according to the rule decreed, and a he-goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. And upon the 8th day you shall have a festival. You shall do no servile work, but present as a sacrifice of delightful scent to the ever-living a perfect bullock, a ram, and 7 lambs of a year old, with bread and drink offerings for the bullock, for the ram, and for the lambs, according to the rule decreed, with a he-goat for a sin offering, beside the perpetual sacrifices with their bread and drink offerings. You shall sacrifice these to the ever-living in your festival, beside your vows and freewill offerings, with your sacrifices and your bread and drink offerings, and your thank offering. Chapter 30. Moses consequently reported to the children of Israel all that the ever-living commanded to Moses. Then Moses addressed the chiefs of the tribes of the children of Israel, saying, This is the thing that the ever-living commands. A person who vows a vow to Jehovah, or swears an oath to bind his soul, shall not repudiate his word, but perform all that has come out of his mouth. And a woman who has vowed a vow to the ever-living, but who is yet in the house of her father in her youth, when her father hears of her vow, and the bond with which she has bound her soul, and her father is silent upon it, then every vow shall stand, and every bond shall stand, with which she has bound her soul. But if her father comes to forbid her at the time he hears of any vow or bond with which she has bound her soul, it shall not stand, and Jehovah will release her, because her father forbids it. But if she has a husband, and she takes a vow upon her, or rashly utters from her lips what might bind her soul, when her husband hears of it, if he keeps silent to her at the time he hears, then the vow and bond with which she has bound her soul shall stand. But if at the time her husband hears of it, he prohibits it, then the vow which she has vowed upon herself, and the rash utterance of her lips by which she has bound her soul, shall be annulled, and the ever-living will release it. But the vow of a widow or a divorced woman, all that they bind upon their souls shall stand upon them. Yet if the mistress of a house binds a bond upon her soul with an oath, if when her husband hears of it he keeps silent to her, not forbidding it, then every vow and every bond which he has bound upon her soul shall stand. But if at the time her husband hears it he annuls them, all that came out of her lips as a vow or a bond upon her soul shall not stand. Her husband has annulled it, and the ever-living will release it. Every vow and every oath binding to afflict the soul, her husband may confirm and her husband may annul. But if her husband keeps silent to her from day to day, then he confirms them, for he was silent to her at the time he heard. But if he annuls them after having heard of them, then he takes away any blame. These are the laws that the ever-living commanded to Moses about husband and wife, and about father and young girl in the house of her father. Chapter 31. The ever-living spoke to Moses and said, Arouse the children of Israel against the Midianites after you have enumerated your people. Moses therefore spoke to the people, saying, Select from yourselves officers for a war with the Midianites, for the Lord has ordered an advance against Midian of 1,000 from each tribe, from all the tribes of Israel, to go upon an expedition. So they massed from the tribes of Israel by 1,000 from each tribe, 12,000 chosen for the war, and Moses sent the 1,000 from each tribe to the war, with Phinehas the son of Eleazar the priest, and the sacred furniture and the gongs in his possession to encourage them. These made war against Midian as the ever-living commanded Moses, and slew every leader. They also slew the kings of Midian in the slaughter, Ar, and Rechem, and Zur, and Kur, and Rabbah, the 5 kings of Midian, and also slew Balaam the son of Beor with the sword. Then the children of Israel took possession of the women of Midian, with their children, and all the cattle, and all their property, and all their people as booty, with all the villages which they inhabited, and burnt all their furniture with fire, and carried off all the plunder and all the spoil from the field and from the person. Then they brought the captives to Moses and Eleazar the priest, and to the parliament of the children of Israel, along with the plunder and the booty, to the camp at the fords of Moab, which was beside the torrent near Jericho. Then Moses and Eleazar the priest, with all the princes of the parliament, went out to meet them outside the camp. But Moses was angry with the officers of the army, the colonels of regiments and captains of companies, who returned with the army from the war, and Moses asked them, "Why have you kept the women alive? What were they to the children of Israel under the advice of Balaam? They seduced them to desert the ever-living in the affair of Peor, and they brought a pestilence upon the congregation of Jehovah. Now therefore kill every male child, and every woman who has known man sexually, kill. But let every young girl who has not known a man sexually live for yourselves. Also pitch your tents outside the camp for 7 days, all who have killed a person or been wounded in battle. You must be cleansed from defilement at the 6th day, and on the 7th day, you and your prisoners, and all your clothing, and every article of leather, and all fabrics of hair, and every article of wood, shall be cleansed." Then Eleazar the priest said to the commanders of the army who came from the war, "This is the constitutional law which the ever-living has commanded to Moses. All the gold and the silver, and the brass and the iron, the tin and the lead, all things which can resist fire, you shall put through the fire to purify them. But everything that is not able to endure fire shall be cleansed by passing through water, by washing in water. You shall also wash your clothes on the 7th day, and purify yourselves, and afterwards you may enter the camp." The ever-living also spoke to Moses and said, "You and Eleazar and the princes of the fathers of the parliament, take an account of the booty of the prisoners, both of the men and of the cattle, and divide the booty among the captors of the brigade who brought it from the campaign, and among all their people. But take off a tax from them for the ever-living from the soldiers who actually went into battle, 1 head from 500 of the men, and of the cattle, and of the asses, and of the sheep. You shall take it from their share, and give it to Eleazar the priest as a tax for the ever-living. But from the share for the children of Israel you shall take 1 from every 50 of the men, of the cattle, and of the asses, and of the sheep, and from all the animals, and give them to the Levites who form the guard of the sanctuary of the ever-living." Moses and Eleazar therefore did as Jehovah commanded to Moses. And the prize, beside the plunder that the people plundered in the army, was of sheep 675,000, and of cattle 72,000, and of asses 61,000, and of persons, with the girls who had not known man sexually, all the human individuals were 32,000. But the half of the booty that came to the army was, from the number of sheep 337,500. And the tax of the Lord from the sheep was 675, and of cattle 36,000, and the tax to the Lord 72, and of asses 30,500, and the tax for the Lord was 61, and of human beings 16,000, and the tax for the ever-living 32 persons. And Moses gave the taxes which were the Lord's as a raised offering to Eleazar the priest, as the ever-living commanded to Moses. But the portion of the children of Israel which Moses took from the soldiers, and which was the share of the parliament, was of sheep 337,500, and of cattle 36,000, and of asses 30,500, and of human beings 16,000. Moses also took from this share of the children of Israel 1 from every 50, both of the men and of the beasts, and gave them to the Levites of the guard who guarded the sanctuary of the ever-living, as the Lord commanded to Moses. Then the officers of the regiments of the army, the colonels of regiments, and the captains of companies presented themselves to Moses, and said to Moses, "Your servants were promoted to be the chief commanders in the campaign which is in our hand, and not a man of us is missing. Therefore we present this gift to the ever-living, each from what he has found of articles of gold, anklets, and bracelets, seals, earrings, and beads, to expiate for our persons before the ever-living for our lives." Moses and Eleazar the priest, therefore, accepted from them all these articles made of gold. And the weight of the gold presented to the ever-living by the colonels of the regiments and the captains of companies was 16,750 shekels; for the commanders in the army had each plundered for themselves. So Moses and Eleazar the priest accepted the gold from the commanders of regiments and companies, and brought it into the hall of assembly, as a remembrance from the children of Israel, before Jehovah. The end of chapters 26 through 31 of the Book of Numbers. Recording by Mark Penfold.